So hello, everyone. Again, for those who just joined us, this is Julia and Joelle from Open Source Politics, which is a civic tech startup based in France and operating worldwide, which powers participatory platforms, open source tools notably, and namely the Decidim platform for local communities and national governments to help them implement participatory processes and participatory democracy initiatives. So today we will be focusing on participatory budgeting in particular, which is one of the most widespread participatory initiatives and also concerns the budget allocation side, which is probably the most interesting for this summit concerning public engagement. So can you move to the next slide, please, Joelle? Yes. So this talk is structured in 3 parts. First one, we will give an introduction and a background to participatory budgeting, what it is, how it works. So you might tell us, guys, how much you're familiar with the concept of participatory budgeting. So I won't be too long if you're all very familiar with it. Still, we will give an overview, and we're going to share these slides with you. So you will have like all the deliverables in the end. Second part will be dedicated to how it will be possible to improve participatory budgeting than what it's done now. And third, we will focus into technology and how technology, which kind of tools can help boosting and enhancing the scope and the power of participatory budgeting. So we might start with a little background first. Participatory budgeting is a process which can be ascribed to the larger framework of open government and participatory democracy. Citizens and community members are asked to allocate a given share of the community's or city budget through a democratic deliberation process. This can mean different things. Either citizens choose and prioritize some items and options on a given list of projects, which is provided by the community itself, or they submit their own projects and initiatives. The first participatory budgeting experiments was held in Porto Alegre in Brazil back in 1989. Yes. So some areas of this town were lacking of access to essential resources as a result of decades of local government characterized by clientelism and lack of efficiency. So when this new mayor Dutra from the Workers' Party won the elections, he decided to adopt a groundbreaking approach to solve the major issues of these neighborhoods. With a revolutionary approach, which was bringing citizens together to openly discuss and deliberate on the best and most effective solutions. It worked so well that the experiment was replicated elsewhere in Brazil at first and then spread worldwide. Over the years, participatory budgeting has taken many forms. In some cases, it means that citizens are asked to contribute to the definition of budget priorities of the municipality or region, or it is about like citizens submitting projects and then voting upon their favorite ones. It works more or less according to the roadmap you're looking at now. So there are a few major steps on both sides being the citizens on one hand and the city hall on the other, local government. So it starts with a call for projects and ideas from the citizens and civil society organizations, so associations and so on. Then these projects go through a feasibility assessment, which select eligible ones for voting. Citizens are then asked to vote or prioritize their favorite projects, given that the total budget is limited, of course. And finally, once the winning projects are announced, it is either the city or the citizens or associations themselves taking care of the implementation phase. In both cases, the awareness of citizens make them overwatchers and monitors of this process, which increases the transparency and accountability. So it has been 30 years. The main advantages of this initiative are that basically, first and foremost, participatory budgeting is a way to strengthen citizens' trust towards local institutions and to reinforce the appeal of democracy and of the deliberative process. The fact that people see the change produced by their engagement makes them feel agent and legitimate actors in the collective shaping of the public space. Bringing people together also results in more positive interactions, including across different groups that do not get the chance to come together and discuss very often. And last but definitely not least, raising awareness among citizens and having them watching over budget allocation helps in corruption prevention, whereas putting final users at the core of the budget definition enhances fiscal efficiency by addressing the right issues in the right way. Now, it has been 30 years since the first experiment in Porto Alegre, and I have a question for you. How many participatory budgeting do you think are implemented worldwide in these days? So we have figures from 2019, so 30 years after the first experiment. So take a guess and please answer the poll. Shane should be sharing. We do have a poll ongoing.
So, yeah, let's go.
All right. Okay.
All right, cool. I think we've got our results. Go ahead and I will share. So it looks like A and B were tied.
All right. So the answer is, I don't know why I don't see the results of the poll. All right, so it's quite a lot, like it's almost 12K. We don't have like a very precise figure because like there's no common and universally accepted definition of participatory budgeting. So there are some processes which might fall into the category and some that might not really. So the figure is still a bit blurred, but now, right now, like worldwide, or at least in the 70 plus countries analyzed by the largest World Atlas, we know that like in 2019, which is pre-pandemic, there were like almost 12K participatory budgeting worldwide, and not necessarily only in democratic states, which is something pretty interesting itself. It means that the local communities can manage to implement this kind of process, even though the state government is not necessarily democratic. And now I'll leave the floor to Joel, which is gonna tell the second part of this talk.
Yes. So to be able to truly strengthen public trust and to empower citizens, we need to avoid the risk of deception by offering them the possibility of wielding real power in order to have a real impact. So we can summarize this with the notion of participatory budget in big capital letters. So P and B, capital P, capital B. So that would be the two main parts of what I'm going to show you. First of all, capital P, participatory in capital letters, means that participatory budgeting is a useful tool because the logics of a PB, of a participatory budget, are easily understandable, and people can directly see the effects of their engagement, especially the material ones, like projects that are built, etc. So when communicating about it, it's convenient to highlight the principle of agency or delegation towards citizens. There are multiple examples of relevant changes thanks to participatory budgets. The most salient being the bolstering of citizens' organizations, for example, associations who managed to fund a project that they already wanted to carry with the help of public authorities now, or individuals that join into already existing projects. One of the examples that we share the most is one of the French city of Angers in the center of the country, that really they really made this in a very, very innovative way, and they put the accent of not only offering the possibility to citizens of say their opinions or carry on their project, like just delivering them, but really engaging with associations, working with them. So The common feature of all participatory budgets is that they are administered in public money. However, there are mainly two types of project implementation. On one side, we have the implementation by the public authority that's organizing the PB. So it's the classic way, it's all-inclusive, because in principle, anyone with enough time to draft a proposal can suggest it without worrying after drafting and planning it. And for example, one example of this would be the participatory budget of the city of New York, for which we, Open Source Politics, will have deployed an online platform where no matter who can share their projects, and those projects will be voted afterwards. And then on the other side, we have the implementation by the project owner. So it's like a classic call for grants, but upgraded. So the projects originate in civil society and are carried by them, but putting them to a vote allows to allocate supplementary resources to those having a bigger impact in a community or having positive spillovers beyond the project owner, and thus being more popular among the community. However, the audience of this kind of participatory budgets is restricted to associations or groups with enough resources to carry out the project execution. However, in their favor, one could say that they are often the ones who have the better field experience on the specific subject they are defending. And one example of this that we have worked with is the one of the island of Réunion in the Pacific Ocean. It's a French department, and in the whole island they are organizing a citizens initiative fund where associations can put their projects to a vote. And those projects will be carried on by the associations. So then we have detailed capital P, and then we have capital B, budgeting in capital letters. So at this stage, participatory budget, tend to be no more than a little share of the investment budget of a public authority, often treated as a surplus. So this quantitative limit is also easy to understand by people, but because of this, it's a fact that sends a clear message to them. So we ask ourselves, like, why we don't go further? Why we don't include citizens in more capital topics, such as involving citizens in defining budget priorities, the budget priorities of the community. So this is one of the main reflections that are currently currently in the public participatory budget field, in terms of possible leaps forward that we will maybe we will be able to see in the future. And then the whole participatory budget in capital letters, anyway, back to the present, a bigger budget may show better disposition from the public authority and trust towards the public, and thus it will attract more participation. It also makes it possible for participants to invest themselves in more ambitious projects, encouraging a deeper and more serious engagement, versus a more clientelar or low effort one, where people would just come up on a one-off basis with rather individual issues. However, we need to take into account that, for example, resource abundance may discourage some participants from rationalizing expenses, which is usually part, and you'll tell me, maybe a big part of financing. And also, more complexity means that some publics may be excluded because of this difficulty. Now I give back the floor to Julia.
Thank you very much. So this panel is, of course, about technology, and probably the biggest evolution since 1989, the first participatory budgeting, has been the IT and the IT progresses and the internet era. Digital tools are, of course, key to scale up and enhance almost everything nowadays, including citizens' engagement. Next slide, please. Thank you. And digital tools can, in fact, help enhance the scope and the impact of participatory budgeting and other formats of citizen participation, notably by allowing asynchronous participation, by expanding outreach, and by creating bridges, online bridges between people and projects. Participation is made easier and more immediate thanks to dematerialization. And public debate is fostered via online interaction among participants. And moreover, accountability and transparency are enhanced because like the total account of votes is made public. The implementation can be more easily shared. And more in general, like information is more accessible. But most of all, the marginal cost of participation once the infrastructure, such as a participatory platform, is in place, drops to zero. And it will give you access to a demo of like the tool we're using, this open source participatory platform called Decidem, to see what it looks like. How it looks like. However, technological solution isn't, we know that technology is not an answer by itself. Like the era in which we believe that technology would have solved all our problems and saved us from every evil in the world has definitely ended. And actually now we're much more skeptical about what technology is doing to our societies. So the choice of tools is absolutely crucial. And by choice of tools, I mean like platform design and philosophy, and notably when it comes to the use of data and data privacy, which is something people are more and more concerned about. So as open source politics, we are advocating for the adoption of deployment of open source tools. Joel, can you move on to the next slide, please? Thanks. Why open source tools is because the use of open source softwares by public authorities is more ethical and cost effective than proprietary digital solutions. Why is that? It is because, first of all, the tool does not depend on one specific company. And basically, if this company doesn't exist anymore, then the same software can be rethrived by someone else, by some other entity, or the public authority itself can appropriate of the can take the ownership of its own tool and keep using it once it has learned how to. Second, open source softwares are completely transparent. You can verify their code, you can audit and review their code. And so you can definitely spot whether data privacy is actually a principle which is implemented or not. It encourages horizontal governance because open source tools are made and maintained by a community, a diverse and widespread community of developers and of designers, which encourages more horizontal dynamics and helps having more and more diverse people keeping enhancing and empowering the tools. Of course, there's no black box effect in everything concerning decisions which are taken on such an online platform. And in the end of the day, it is also a matter of investment efficiency, because of course, once public money goes into funding public code, this public code remains as a common of the community. That is why we talk about digital commons. The other thing that has to be taken into account is that digital tools are not suitable for all. 2 years of pandemic have taught us that digital divide can widen and not close exclusion and marginalization. So what is added to initiatives such as participatory budgeting with digital tools is that basically you can better orient and make more effective also the non-digital formats, and so target better and more those groups, those parts of societies which are a bit left behind in general. And so while you can bring and enhance and scale up a part of the participation into something like participatory budgeting or another citizens engagement format onto digital tools, onto digital platforms, which allows you to reach to new publics, you can also better allocate your efforts, your more analogic efforts towards the most excluded ones, to allow everyone to be considered and no one to be left behind. So that's why we believe that hybrid approaches are the most effective, because on one hand you can have more and more responsive, user-friendly and accessible digital tools for those who can use them, while you can allocate low-tech resources such as in-person events to the most vulnerable publics. And this is all on our side. We thank you for your kind attention, and we're looking forward to your questions. Thank you.